Y'all got to behave today. I don't have a gavel, okay?
Now we
Take
can
down from the table. That's right. We'll go ahead and get started with the work session, and I've asked Miss Jackie Ziegler if she will open us with prayer.
Would everybody bow your head, please? Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today, acknowledging your presence among us. We invite your divine presence to fill this meeting room and bless our time together. May your Spirit guide our thoughts, our words, and actions so that everything we do brings glory to your name. As stated in Matthew 18:20, where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I with them. And all of God's children said,
Amen. Thank you, Miss Jackie. Our first agenda item is to get an updated school counseling plan presentation. Do you want to introduce it?
We have some folks coming up to, I'll ask them to come on the table. So just a quick note here. Thank you, by the way, Madam Vice President, for the recognition. So Lewis Brooks, Superintendent in Shelby County, I mentioned earlier, he's chairing this group, and he was coming to do the presentation, and unfortunately he's dealing with a family matter this week as his mother passed away. And so he's has plenty on his mind, and so our staff members are going to fill in and talk about the counseling plan and where we are. Again, I said some of this morning, but as y'all know, it's been 22 years since this has been updated. There's been two kind of false starts to get it done, and both ended. The board never voted it down. It just never got to the board vote part. They just didn't finish the project. I'll let everybody here introduce themselves. I know all of them, but Sean Stevens, I have to say, y'all know Mr. Stevens. He is a veteran because he was not in this role, but he was involved in the last attempt, which was about 12 years ago?
Yeah, 2014,
15. Yes. And so that one, as I said, it just didn't get finished, and then we had a period of a lot of change. But it's been our commitment to update everything. And as y'all know, we've now updated all the core courses of study, all the career tech courses of study. We did the library plan, which had also been about 20 years out of date last year, and this year counseling. And then I know we're going to talk about textbooks in a little bit, and I'll get to that. But remember that last year we did social studies course of study, which was also way behind. As I've reminded a lot of folks, that was the first time it was unanimously approved by the board in living memory. And science the same way. I can remember when science was always controversial, science was unanimous. So I want to say a big thank you to this board and a big thank you to our staff, because it's hard to hear everybody's voice and recognize everybody's voice on paper in a way that lets us all move forward together. But we've been able to do that multiple times, and now so we kind of bid in this year and said we're going to do counseling too. We're going to get every course of study and every plan up to date in one administration, which has not been done since Dr. Teague was superintendent. And so we're committed, and we got to get this one across the finish line. So all the pressure's on them. So I don't know who, Dr. Shields, can I turn it over to you?
Absolutely, and we gladly take that. I appreciate those comments. This has certainly been a passion project for a number of us. We've had amazing conversations as we've really looked over previous documents, really reflecting on the nature of school today, on the conversations that are landscapes for our state and our country, and certainly really taking into account some of the conversations around the importance of parent involvement in any conversation relating to the health, both mentally and physically and all of those things. So as we have gone through this document, we've really wanted to make sure that we lifted up that the care of a child is incumbent on everybody that gets in front of that child. And we're having another conversation later this afternoon about supporting a child's behavior and so much of this work that's everybody's business. And so we are very, very pleased to come together with a document that we think is reflective of the conversations that we have encountered over these last few months. I want to celebrate my colleagues for doing such an amazing job putting this together. And I'm actually going to yield to them and let them introduce this, and I will just kind of wrap it up. So if I will let Dr. Busman introduce himself now that he's in a new role.
Good morning, everybody. Blake Busman, Course of Study Administrator. Still wanting to hold on to social studies a little bit, but thrilled to be here and be part of this amazing process. And I'm going to let the actual content experts introduce themselves, and then I'll share a little bit about the process.
And I am, good morning, I am Monica Mack, and I'm one of the counseling specialists.
Good morning, I'm Sean Stevens. I have the pleasure of working with each of these colleagues, as well as many colleagues across our sections and our agency, and just wanted to highlight for just a few moments a few updates about the counseling task force and what they're trying to accomplish. First, want to just recognize Dr. Brooks and Ms. Mooney for being amazing leaders and really joining the groups and having both an ear for the voices at the table, but also providing the expertise and input themselves from their roles. And so I can't say enough about those or the rest of our state staff who've been amazing at helping organize the groups and ensuring that we really are responsive to what the expertise from the profession, both at the administrative level, at the school level, but then also at the higher ed level, so that we're also preparing our educators for the work that they're going to encounter. Just a couple of highlights. So 2 of our Program of Distinction winners earlier today are part of the task force, and so even those that we're recognizing today are still part of the work we're doing every day. So I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Busman and let him talk about the process just briefly, because we have several things going on at one time, and one of which, and he's going to talk about the expert review process that's going on as we are speaking. So just a final reminder that much like our library programs, our counseling programs are part of the instructional program. They are integrated into every aspect of our schools, and the role that each of our educators play is so important. And I appreciate Dr. Shields for saying that it's everyone's business to be connected with our students. Dr. Busman.
So this is not your typical course of study committee. We call ourselves the task force, for which we're very thankful for the many nominees that you suggested who are participating in this process, as well as Ms. Mooney being a Board of Education representative on this task force. It has allowed us to have a smaller, more intimate sense of conversation and a very purposeful collaboration through the months that we have met so far. So our mission and objectives that we are working through here is to, number one, and I think this is something that when we work through social studies, we took much pride in, is building a course of study or a document that's unique to Alabama. Is that we recognize one of the benefits of our federalist system in the United States is that we can, as a state, build something that serves our state most directly. And so we've been very purposeful, keeping in mind our students, our schools, our school counselors, our LEAs, our parents, and our stakeholders. And very purposefully, we pull that word parent out of grouping them together as stakeholders, because with this document, we have recognized that imperative sense of seeing parents as more than just a stakeholder, but an equal, if not greater, partner in student education. And so what we've done is, so far in our meetings, has been very similar to a traditional course of study meeting, in that we've looked at the landscape, what are other states doing, what are we doing within our state. We've looked back at the 2003 counseling plan, what works, what doesn't work, and given that it is 22 years later, we've looked at the language, the guidelines, the different laws, what has changed with the profession, in order to update it to where it needs to be for the 2025, and not just 2025, but moving forward. And with this as well, very much has been engaging with our stakeholders, with our content area experts. We're about to move into a public review. But we've been very pleased. Just so many of the men and women being recognized today are serving as expert reviewers of our document right now. We have over 100 expert reviewers out in the field of school counseling conducting a very thorough expert review. That feedback will go to our task force next week and inform future edits we make to that, in addition to the public review that will be conducted coming up. Where we've been thus far, this is also not a typical timeline for a course of study. A course of study generally begins in January, but because of the due diligence of our leadership as well as our school counselors to be able to invest in this process, we put together this task force between March and April. We met immediately beginning in April, oriented our task force members to the goal, surveyed what they wanted, as well as what they felt our state needed. I like to call it needs, wants, and wishes, and being able to see what we can work with from there. Beginning in May, we looked back at how we structure what is being taught or implemented at the different grade levels. In May and June was largely taken up of looking at a new approach to what is not in terms of revolutionizing what's being taught, but a new way of structuring it within the document of what are our different students learning through their school counseling engagement from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. July, we met because once again, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I do want to emphasize that this does not read like a standard course of study. We went through extensively, talked about the school counselor duties, the school counselor roles, and how it's not just limited to school counselors, but so many different roles within a school and in a school system engage in the school counseling program. So we wanted to make sure we were representative of all those different roles and their contributions to the school counseling program. August, we worked through the introductory sections of the plan, making sure that we clarified, and Mr. Stevens and Dr. Mack are going to go over more of that in a little bit, but going over what is our vision, what is our mission for school counseling in Alabama. And so where we are right now is we are conducting our expert review. Expert reviews are due Monday. Like I said, we have over 100 counselors conducting those currently, and we look forward to meeting again next week to begin looking through that feedback as well as the public feedback that we'll begin receiving.
Just a couple of highlights about what the new model will include. The group has really been focused on ensuring that it begins with a clear vision, a clear mission, and one of the changes the task force has brought to is talking about guiding principles, and you can see those that of course they align with our motto of each, every child, every chance, every day, and that we're that they believe that all children have the right to experience respect and dignity, they have the right to learn and succeed, and the right to a rigorous and relevant curricula that's led by a school counselor who is an expert in their field, and that they all have access to that school counseling program, and that it remains student-centered, and that student outcomes, of course, are recognized based on their individual goals. One of the things I know that's been important to leadership, and I know you as well as from your commitment, is that it's aligned to our Alabama MTSS model. And so you'll see that throughout, where we're addressing both the academic career and that foundational wellness development of our students. And then finally, that we benefit from the active parent and family engagement with our students, and that we know that a student's education begins at home. We say it all the time, right? Parents as first teachers, and we also want to lift that up and recognize their input and their value in the overall education of students. Dr. Matt? No? Okay. A lot has changed in 22 years. A lot has changed. And so what we wanted to do was at least provide the profession with language that, of course, is relevant to that profession. However, just also staying true to the values of this board and what the expectations of this board has for us when it comes to our programs. You'll see here just again definitions, a greater emphasis on parental collaboration, the structure of the learning standards so that it makes it's much more effective for our school counselors to plan through grade clusters. How can I introduce a concept in elementary and then expand upon it as a student moves throughout their high school career. Clear and concise pathways for our schools and districts to actually establish and oversee their programs. And finally, once the plan itself is complete, and we hope that the board will vote for approval, then we move into how do we actually turn that into an evaluation tool for our school counselors, which is much like libraries, it's been a long time. And so I think that part of the profession is also looking forward to those changes.
Can you accept inquiries as we go along, and you want to wait till we finish?
However, yeah, sure, yes, sir, of course.
Under the updating the definitions of school counselors, and I know this may be semantic, but we're not talking about the term guidance counselor. You're changing the semantic to just counselor, and that sometimes causes some definition concerns. So, do you have a list that you can release to us? What you're defining, the updated list of the definitions of school counselor, because it was not included in this handout.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. Reynolds.
And because one of the issues that I know is delayed the modification is the concept of social emotional learning. And so if a counselor is a guidance counselor who helps direct the children through our curriculum versus counselor who deals with social and even professional counseling roles, conflict in my understanding about what the role is. Because to me, the counselors that I have as an adjunct to the instructional program is to guide the parents and the student through our instructional program through various curriculum. So I'd like to see, or you to explain or discuss what you have contrived as the definition of a school counselor.
Yes, sir, happy to do that. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
You want to do it now?
Yes, sir, happy to do that. Yes, sir. So when
Because
we
it's not included, and I thought it would be better if you gave it to us. Some of these things that you've arrived at, because you're going out for review, I'd like to have what you're giving out for your professional review, for my professional review at the same time.
Yes, sir. So happy to do that, Dr. Reynolds. So when we say school counselor, we mean what in the past you had thought of as a guidance counselor. The profession changed the name from guidance counselor many, many years ago, and including the department issues, our certificates say school counselor. And so when we say school counselor, we mean the actual educator that's in each of our schools at the school level who is leading that instructional program. We're not talking about those who may be contracted, mental health counselors, any of those that are part of the outside. Now, you will see in the plan, we're glad that at least the group has brought this. You'll see mentions of our school social worker or school psychologist, which are part of our education family. But Dr. Reynolds, this is only about our school counselors, those that are employed by our districts that work in our schools every day, that in the past had been, the term guidance counselor had been used. It's changed many years ago. It's not something, some people really want to see that change. And I know that many of our professionals will have a conversation when they don't like the word guidance, but I don't take offense to it.
Some of them don't like the word counselor
Right.
because of the professional, even medical, or the social workers concept.
That's right.
So and as I said, it's not just a semantic differential. It's actually, so what are you listing as a definition of a school counselor? Can you tell me what?
So Dr. Reynolds, if I
You wanna
can
give it to
jump
me
in.
later?
Well, so school counselor is what we used to call a guidance counselor. Yes, so it's the same responsibilities. I think though, the clarification is school counselors don't do therapy. And we have a very clear line of demarcation that if a person, and the word counselor gets used a lot, because a person can be a licensed mental health counselor and they do provide therapy. And some of our school counselors are licensed mental health counselors, but as school counselors, they don't provide therapy. We don't allow any student to go into therapy unless the parents opt in. So that's been a question, and that's been an issue in the last few months. Like, could a school counselor just start doing therapeutic sessions with a student? And the answer is no. But the answer's been no. We've not allowed that in the past before this plan, but we need to clarify that over and over and over again because the public gets confused between those things, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Even if school counselors are doing routine school counseling, so like helping students select their courses for the next year. Parents they know about those, that counselors are helping my students select courses. So parents are involved all along the process. I think you'll see that later in the plan. That there's definitely a parent role to be played. But the key is that our school counselors don't provide therapy, and that anyone who is providing therapy, because we have a charge from the legislature, we're required to offer therapy to students, but parents have to opt into that therapy in compliance with the medical requirements, which is people under 16 cannot make their own medical choices, and therapy is considered a medical choice.
So you said what a counselor wasn't.
Yeah.
My question was, in that bulleted issue, updated the definition of school counselor. I would like to know what that is in the plan. You said what counselors were not. I'd like to know what the definitions of a school counselor are. So that's the first bullet.
It says skills.
Okay.
So a person who, so school counselors, that one, they have to be certified. So we have a certification program for people to become school counselors. Employed full-time, so they're not contract employees. School counselors are employed of the school as earned in the foundation program, and they're certified to do that, and they meet those, meet those definitions. Now, I would say that we're working on a model plan for how school counselors operate. As you know, local school systems employ people. And so a local school system may say that in addition, the school counselor is going to be the school registrar. We have some issues with that, by the way. You're going to find that in the plan. We don't want schools to use their school counselors as administrators. Same way we said we don't want school librarians used as just technology coaches and not running a library. And so when we adopt the plan and go back to libraries, we did that. We said, okay, here's what a model librarian should be doing. And here's what a model library should look like. And then, as Mr. Stevens indicated, we'll come back and do a rubric that'll say, if you're doing it right, this is what your librarian's doing every day. If you're doing counseling right, this is what your counselor's doing every day. Now, some districts will say, well, that's fine and good, but I'll take a B, and I'm also going to make the counselor the registrar. We don't necessarily like that, but, they employ the people. We set the standards, and the standards, of course, haven't been updated in 22 years, so essentially we don't have anything right now. We don't even have a plan, because once it's that old, it's just so out of date. Yes, Ms. Martin, you may have something.
Yes, I just want to make certain that we are aware that the certificates that are issued by the department, it changed to school counselor in 2000. So we went, before 2000. So we have not used guidance counselor since then. And also the list that Sean is referencing, from my preview of it, is updating the school counselor skills and not necessarily a definition for what a school counselor is. So we were focusing on the skills. What are we expecting a good school counselor to have? What skills do we expect them to have in order to meet the needs of our boys and girls across Alabama?
Some examples of those, if I could say, include advocacy, include ethical, and so those are some of those different skills that we define within the document.
What do you mean by ethical?
Being able to follow guidelines, administrative code, we reference it multiple times within the document, the Alabama Administrative Code, realizing that the legislature is adding new limitations.
The ethical position of the counselor, not teaching ethics.
Correct.
No,
yes,
no,
sir. Yes,
no.
sir.
They follow counseling.
There's the differential. I mean, we clearly understand what a math teacher, a science teacher, a social studies teacher does in the curriculum. But when we start examining the counselor program, and that's why it's taken so long to revise it, is to look at what a counselor is expected to do in their counseling days. And I understand what we don't want them to do, but there are other issues that may come up about what they do or not. So I'll leave you alone.
Right, well, let's keep going through. I think that they, as y'all, some of you have been along a long time, recall, one of the reasons that the 13, 14 plan, one of the reasons it didn't progress to a board vote was a disagreement over, because that was in the day of landlines and you had to pay for every line, and one of the recommendations was that every counselor be able to have a private line, and we had a lot of superintendents that said, I ain't paying for a private line for my counselor. Well, and that was one of the main reasons it failed. It's over how many landlines the school had to purchase. I'm saying that's not an issue anymore. We've moved on beyond that with VIOP and other things, so we just can't let those old problems sideline us anymore.
one more thing, Dr. Mack, if I may. When we do the press release right after this, which Blake already has on cue, I would say, to go out, the full plan, this is an overview. This is just an update of how we got here, working with the great committee that was put together, but the entire plan will be linked in there, so everyone will have access.
Yeah.
And that will be a part of that public feedback to read and let us know some considerations to take back to the group. So that is a part of the deep dive. This is just a summary. So please, we want to make certain we get it right. So whatever feedback we can get and share with our group that's leading this work, we welcome it. So just wanted to.
And it's not something we're bringing for a vote next month, by the way. This is the beginning. Yeah.
I guess for clarity, I would like to have had what you're gonna release to the public before you release it to the public. It doesn't matter. You've already proceeded.
Right.
So we're trying to follow our normal protocol because we want to make sure our expert reviewers had time to really look at it from different lenses. And I thank you for that question because we've been so cautious about every single word in that document to make sure that we're answering any questions, concerns. I can't even tell you the deliberations we've had in our meetings to do that. But just to address your question, Dr. Reynolds, in the preface of the document that you will see, we spent a great deal of time really capturing the nature of an Alabama school counselor. And it reminds me, because we just finished the library document as well, many years ago we called librarians library media specialists, and now we call them school librarians. The nature of the work remains much the same. So it is, you mentioned that before, it is a little bit of semantics, but we have taken really great care. The way I look at this document, we've had some internal discussions as an English teacher, as a history teacher. I have courses of study, right? Those are my marching orders. So when you ask me as an 11th grade English teacher, what do you do? I am going to yield to that course of study and say, I am asked to make sure that these skills are imparted to my students and that there's information that really sets those constructs for me as an 11th grade teacher to do that. We wanted to be very, very clear in our definition of those skills so that we were consistent in our messaging across the state, but that we were also listening to the stakeholders and making sure that we were imparting that language and those concerns and those very specific requests in these documents, in this document. Now, and thank you, Ms. Martin, it was perfect timing because I was like, we're about to send the document for public viewing because this is what we normally do. So we send it out and say, okay, this is what it looks like right now. We really want you to invest in looking at it. We want you to send it to your friend, your sister, your pastor, your whoever, to be able to have.
Even your school board member.
Even a school board member.
Same school board member might like to have it too.
Absolutely, we'll make sure you have it as well. So right now, our expert reviewers are going through that process. We had a little debrief right before the meeting that so far it's been some minimal changes, but we haven't seen anything yet that gave us pause. We're going to make those final edits, which we'll present at the next work session, and then provide the draft as well. The public comment, we wanted to give a lot of time for the public to have an opportunity to really look at it. So I do ask, if you would, please share. We want to get this document out. We don't want to be talking about this in December when we've had all this opportunity to really flesh things out. We'll consider those final edits. We will covet your response. We certainly want you to look at it from specific questions, concerns that you've gotten from your part of the state. And hopefully we want to recommend finally an adoption to move forward with this new counseling plan. We feel it is very strong. It's very, very robust. And like I said, I got to applaud Dr. Mack, Mr. Stevens, Dr. Buston, and the entire task force who have spent an incredible amount of time really thinking about it from every conceivable angle.
And each of your recommended task force members have been so active in those, and we thank you for doing that as well. Not necessarily waiting on someone to be nominated, but someone that you knew would take an active role in that, and we appreciate that as well.
And we did fast pace it. I appreciate you mentioning this is not your typical, because this is not a course of study. So when I say we hit the ground running, I mean it. And once again, that's just a testament to the great work of this task force and the leadership of Morgan.
And we internalized it too. So both this one and library, historically, the department didn't lead the work on those plans. They're not normal courses of study. The library and association and the counselors associations did the work, and then they just brought them to the board and asked the board to kind of adopt them. And so that when we did library, we said, no, we're going to make it a board document, not just the board putting its imprimatur on an association's document. And that worked really well. The library thing, I think it was a model way. And so we took that same process and have followed it this year. So it's coming. So you're getting it, you're a month ahead of time. I know this was really not for November, and to them, I pressed them to give it to you a month ahead because I wanted you to have more than just a month to think about it, but this is where we are, and it's really going to be, it's a really good document. Dr. Mack's done a lot of work. She undersold herself. She said, I'm one of the specialists. She does a lot of work in leading our school counseling work for us. And all those people you saw standing down there today, when they have questions, they're going to her. And she, fortunately, not one of them filters up to me because she takes care of them and gets their questions answered. So I think,
I do have one.
Ms. Mack, yes, ma'am.
Just
Yeah.
you could be super brief, or just, this is the last bullet, updated guidance for school counseling program and school counselor evaluation. I know that when I was a parent, I had concerns about different courses that my child was being recommended. And so, and of course I was an involved parent, so I was able to step in and say, you know, my daughter wants to take 2 PEs this semester, but we're doing higher math. You know, things like that. I hope they're not listening, the girls.
They'll look at it.
So anyway, you put counselor evaluation on here, and I will read in detail your report and provide my feedback, but just real quickly, are you offering schools a tool for parents to evaluate their experience with their school counselor? I mean, I think part of an evaluation should include how are parents receiving the guidance that their kids are being given. Very often I know students will go in and tell a school counselor, you know, I want to be a whatever, and maybe academically that may not be their trajectory. And so I think it's good for parents to be able to know the input of those counselors, what they're saying to their children, and then allowing the parents also to kind of provide an evaluation, because they're not just schedulers. Like, this is the future. This is where they're being led, and this person is having an influence on where they might go to college. If they go to college, might be helping them decide that college isn't right for them. And so I just, you know, I'll read it and provide my input, but I hope that evaluation takes into account some of those discussions for parents.
I think that's a great lift, and I do know in many of our, we call them climate surveys that our schools conduct through various means, either for their continuous improvement plans and then a number of other internal assessments that schools do. I know that counseling is often a critical piece of that, and I really like where you're going with that, to provide an opportunity to be really explicit about, I think our intent is to use those skills, because counselors fall outside of, obviously, when we're doing ATOT observations, we're looking at very specific teacher skills. We want to make sure that when we're having conversations with an accomplished counselor, that we're really able to lift up the things that we as a state have said, this is what an accomplished counselor does. Bringing in, I think, the parent perception survey, I think that would be a wonderful addition to that. I was just making a note to explore that.
And I'll help her out. So one of the requirements this board has already that is in the current plan and will be in this one, is that each of our school counseling programs has that program assessment, and part of that assessment that's required every year is input from the teachers, parents, and the students that directly impact and influence the way the school counselor kind of determines, which paths we go through as far as the instructional piece, but it's always been part of that. And when we look at a new evaluation tool, I think the committee, or certainly the next task force that creates that, will take all of those things into consideration, because it's so important that that input be part of that. And I think that our folks are already doing that. They're required to do that. But I think, and I have several examples specifically from school systems, had it not been, I'm thinking of one in particular who just in a part of our monitoring said, we never did that before. And because we had that input this year, because it was part of the monitoring process, they were able to discover that a certain issue that was going in their school that had never been brought up, and it never would. And his exact words were, "It's hard for us to know, such and such issues going on when you're only talking to kids about their GPAs and where they want to go to college." And I mean, he was very heartfelt that day and said, now we were able to connect, even though we don't know who the kids are that have this, but because they were able to respond in a way that gave us, hey, this needs to be a priority, we were able to bring resources into it. And that was from an accomplished counselor who said, we actually never did that assessment piece of it before. So it's in our current plan, and we will certainly take that into.
I think we could align that.
Have 100%.
This new
Yes,
draft.
absolutely.
And really take some of that in perspective. And I think that would be a great opportunity for our stakeholders, our
Correct.
parents, to see, we really want to know what, we always want to be a blessing to
That's
students, but we certainly want to make sure that our parents have the opportunity to voice either concerns or wishes. Many times it's like, I wish my high school offered
That's right.
this or that.
Well, Ms. West brought it, the first item that I was focusing on, where she was more articulate and focusing on, one person that's most capable of being collaborative with the parent and the child and the teacher is the counselor. Sometimes the principal can do that, but the counselor, in involving the parents and knowing what's going on in the school and with that child, that's when if the counselor is not doing scheduling, administrative, should be doing those skill sets. And when I was talking about what the role of the counselor is not directive. Counselor is collaborative with the student and the parents, because they're the big stakeholder. And sometimes even with grandparents. You'll figure that out too. She's gonna be a new grandmama soon. Is this second or third one? Yeah. So that's what I was focusing on. And thank you for your comment, because that's what I was really concerned about.
I wanted to mention something. I wanted to, first of all, applaud you that I think that with the social studies, I will give you credit for that since it's your little. And then library, that the feedback I got is that they felt that their comments had been heard. And I think if we, and I appreciate and applaud, and my thing went off, from October to November, that fourth bullet allows that public review to be elongated to allow more time. Because the whole key to letting everybody feel as if they're a part of it is communication, communication, communication. And therefore, if they feel that their voice is being heard and you're seeking their input, and then I think I remember you had taken some of the input and actually revised, re-edited, whatever, then they will take ownership into it. And I think if we're on the front end understanding this is a biggie, you're going to get a lot of comments. I know you know it's out there. It's already circulating. We thought library was big. Get ready. We're on a mission. It's coming. But I think if we allow them to have that voice and communicate it, we can eliminate a lot of, I hate to use the word mistrust, but more of the concern and the value of having an opinion or a thought or whatever to be actually heard. So I want to applaud you for what you did, and let's continue. This is going to be a biggie, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just a kind of a continuation of your thought, how do we let the public know that they have an opportunity for input? How do we advertise that?
The way the process goes is there's a public release from the Alabama State Department of Education. I have many of the same contacts that I built over work with social studies, different organizations, different groups that are involved in the education sphere one way or the other, that I will then proactively share that press release with, letting them know. Sometimes a Google form doesn't give them the full way that they want to communicate. So by me personally reaching out to them allows them to also feel that they can communicate back more thorough or extensive commentary if they wish to. From our end, what we do ask is when that goes out, we ask that you engage with your districts and share that release and allow them to know. But what we do is, if you have people specific that you wish for me to reach out to, please let me know. I'd love to be able to communicate them, because this is a proactive, transparent, and to borrow a phrase from Dr. Reynolds, a collaborative process. And we want to make sure all three of those are met.
To me, though, that communication with parents is almost as important as what you all have already done. I mean, you can have a great plan, but if it's not presented, it's an appearance of, things being done that aren't collaborative. And I think we'll have a win if we can make sure that every opportunity we advertise. This is not just a small group of people at the big office in Montgomery have decided what we're going to do with your kids. If we can let them know this is your chance to review it and comment, make suggestions, we're still open for business.
And I have to applaud Dr. Busman that just like we did with library, just like we did with social studies, we were very careful to make sure that we have many perspectives in the room. And I thought I really have to applaud your team for that before. But with the social studies, I thought they did such a masterful job of making sure, just as you said, that you could see that the input that we received was taken into account. And we always ask that anyone who reads a document assumes positive intent, because what we want it to be is something that is indicative of what our parents and our students need. So we, as I said before, we covet response. We do everything we can conceivably do to get it out there. We thought by having it out for a longer period of time would just show we want to hear, and we are adjusting as the comments are coming in. We are meeting continually to really consider how we can embed those into the work we have.
We'll send it out, Dr. Long. So our press release list is hundreds of news outlets. As you can imagine, they don't necessarily run it. We also do social media. We'll go through our website. We'll push it through our networks, like Dr. Busman was talking about. My experience has been for about every 5,000 people we send it to, we get maybe one response. And so, it's not a lack of sending it, but that's why one of the reasons we want to talk about in the work session is because that does elevate it to the folks who, we've got a couple of hundred folks who watch the work sessions, but more than that, it's we have media with us today, and so it'll just kind of get it out there. And what you can do in sharing it helps also with your networks, and just taking when we post it on our Facebook page, people repost it. That's one of the best ways we get things out is posting stuff on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We do all of them, but we have more followers on Facebook, and then people pick that up and do those and repost it. So we'll keep pushing it.
Did you say, Dr. Busman, you were going to release it this afternoon? Did I hear you say, or did I?
I believe it's scheduled to go out tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Which allows us to have from tomorrow through Monday, November 10th, prior to.
November 10th, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank y'all. And now I think some of them are coming back pretty soon. Dr. Shields is, right? Sue? Maybe somebody else. I don't know. But right now, we're going to break because we are going to talk about mathematics. Dr. Karen Anderson's with us. Now, I'm excited about this presentation because this came out of the math task force. Dr. Chestnut was texting me during the math task force meeting and saying, this is great information the board needs to do. Not just the math task force, the board needs to see this. So we turned around and asked Dr. Anderson to present. But I actually, other than just flipping through it, haven't been able to actually talk to her and get this information. So it's going really well, though. Next month, we've been asked to present on 2 more national stages. One of them, neither Dr. Anderson nor I can be there because it's the day of our state board meeting. And so we've been asked to present at a conference in Houston. So we have Dr. Ann Dominic going for us. Some of you know Dr. Dominic. I know Dr. Richardson does. She was a K-12 person. Then she was she led the work at Birmingham Southern College before it closed down. And before it closed, we were able to scoop her up. And now she does higher ed math work for us exclusively. And I would tell you, we are the tip of the spear for the whole nation. Nobody has done the math, elementary math work in higher ed that Alabama's done. So everybody's wanting to know about it. So she's going to go present for us at that conference in Houston. And then a couple of weeks later, I'm going to be presenting on our math work at a conference in New Orleans, and I think Dr. Anderson's going to be there with me for that too. So it's nice to see Alabama get elevated, and a big part of that's because of the leadership we have right here. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited to be here to share. I thank you to all of you. Thanks to Dr. Mackey for this opportunity. And we'll just jump right in. You know that the Office of Mathematics Improvement is charged through the Alabama Numeracy Act to support schools that are designated as full or limited. Full support schools are, you'll see they're both demonstrating progress. And I want to share with you a little bit about what that looks like. Full support schools receive support from a regional coordinator every week. And for limited support, it's every other week. And that support can come in a variety of different forms. But I will say that expectations for regional coordinators are to support and monitor. We take that very seriously. So at the beginning of the year is one of the opportunities to monitor. Get into classrooms to see what instruction looks like according to the use of evidence-based practices. Other expectations through the law, are we teaching math for 60 minutes? Are we using high quality instructional materials? Looking at all of that information and then coming together, bringing that to the table with the school team and the district team to create a plan. Also looking at ACAP data, looking at benchmark assessment, screener data, all the things so that we can develop a plan. Once there's a plan in place, then the support comes. So if, for example, there's support needed in the area of one of the evidence-based practices called systematic instruction, one of those is clear objectives. We want students to understand what is the standard, what is the Alabama Course of Study standard, and is that written in student-friendly language, those kinds of things. Supporting administrators so that they understand what those expectations are. The support and monitor, that's what's done. And over the course of the year, and then in the middle of the year, again we're monitoring, end of the year, again we're monitoring. So it's really a matter of holding schools accountable.
One quick question.
Yes.
So on the first bar graph, so basically for full support schools for 24-25, we had 88% that increased
Yes.
their ACAP scores.
Yes.
And there were 12% that decreased. So that's how
Yes.
you got your overall 100%.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Of all of the full support schools that there are, 88% of them increased their ACAP score. And the ACAP scores are the number of students in grades 3, 4, and 5 that scored either 3 or 4 on the ACAP.
Okay. And the same with limited.
Same with limited.
And do we make recommendations to that 12% and 22% on how they can improve? Are we stepping in with them to really get intensive instructional assistance?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll talk about that here on the next slide.
Thank you.
So
Can we go back one?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
When you say that we have, that 88% of the students increased, does that mean they moved from a 1 to a 2, or from a 2 to a 3, or a 3 to a 4? How do you?
Thank you for that question. I just mean that overall, their ACAP scores increased. So if I look at the number of students in grades 3, 4, and 5 that scored either a 3 or 4, that percentage is better than it was last year. In some cases, it's a little better. In some cases, it's a whole lot better. And when I say a whole lot better, 10, 15, 20 percentage points more. It depends on the school. but there has been some improvement. That means more students have mastered standards from one year to the next.
Is there a third category called no support? Are
Well,
there schools
yes,
that have
yes,
no
yes,
support?
yes, yes. There are, we're calling them general support.
Okay.
General
So
support,
there's
yes.
full support, limited support, and general support.
Yes.
What is the data on the limited support? That will be the third category.
The general support,
Yes.
I have to calculate
that's-
that and get that to you because responsibility.
In the progression, sorry, I
Yes,
don't
sir.
mean to interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Am I looking at it, there are three categories. And the third category, I'd be interested in seeing what their data is.
How that compares.
Which helps justify the whole
Absolutely.
support process.
I will get that to you.
Was
Thank
this
you.
not a part of the law though, where we had full support or
Yes,
something?
yes, the Office of Mathematics Improvement is specifically tasked to support full and limited.
Right, okay.
But I understand that general support just for,
We'd just like to see the data.
Yeah, for the data, right.
just
I
for
was just
comparison's sake.
wondering. Okay. I
All right,
understand.
so let me, since you qualified it, so you're saying, I understand the 88 and the 12. Now, when you say increased, are you saying that all those 88% are on, they're on math proficiency? No.
No, they just got better.
Then you're just saying they've shown improvement. So they
Yes.
could be on the bottom and made little baby steps forward.
Yes.
But we're not saying that that's proficiency.
Growth.
Growth. Okay, just want to make
They,
sure I
they,
got it
they
clear.
made improvement. They got better.
And
Yes.
there's schools, so this is school data. Looking at the school overall, if it's a full support school, then 88% of them showed growth, whereas limited support showed 78. And then we'll get what Dr. Reynolds wants, give us kind of a baseline data. Well, what about the schools who are not working? But that, I think that is pretty quickly indicative of the more you're digging into a school and supporting them, the better the growth is.
That's why I'd
So
like to see the
the
third.
coaching model is working because the more intensive we're supporting the school, the better their results are. And then the other results will give you a baseline. I will tell you this though, and I will get to them. I want to see it too. That's a good question. But remember, we're supporting schools based on the law and their proficiency to Ms. Ziegler's question. So full support schools are 5%, right? The lowest 5%
Now
of
it's
the
more
barrel?
6% because
6%.
the law increases that percentage in even years.
Okay.
So we're, so
So
this is the second year
6%, and
that
then
it's
limited support's the next
7 to 25%.
7 to 25%. So 75% of the schools are not on this
Correct.
list at all.
And the data is not reflected for 75% of the.
That's right. So we're talking, and OMI, remember, is only charged with these schools. So Dr. Anderson, if you all remember how the legislature bifurcated it, OMI was created, a new office, to work only with these schools. The other 75% of schools are supported, they're supported through AMSTI, as we've always supported them through AMSTI, but not through OMI. OMI was created to work with the 25% of schools most in need. But we'll get you the
school board
comparative data.
supports, we support
Yeah.
all
Well, we do too, but not
of them.
through
I don't
Dr.
mean
Anderson's
we
work.
as we're part
Yes.
of the we, all of us are we.
Okay, I have one more question, I'm sorry, now that we're on this. So, I'm assuming that this is you compiled all the full support schools to get the data, but you have each of those schools broken down.
I
So
do.
of those,
I do.
you know those that are sort of off and running because they sort of
Yes.
figured it out, and
Yes.
those that need you to come back in and
Yes.
be there for.
Yes, and I'll say this is specifically from the schools that were supported during the 24-25 school year. How did those schools perform?
Yeah, thank you. I thought so, I just want.
One more, I'm sorry, Dr. Long, you have a question.
Dr. Mackey said, you mentioned coaches or coaching. In what ways is the support rendered? What is the support other than coaches, teaching coaches?
I'm going to turn that question back
Back to
over to
her.
Dr. Anderson because that is a lot of, yes. So we have coaches in each of these full support schools. So they have coaches, she'll have to clean this up, that are hired. We provide the district with the money to hire a coach. But if they're a full support school, we also have a full-time person working with that coach. They're a limited support school, they're not going in as often. And then our other schools, AMSTI is supporting the coaches. So we have schools that are not limited or full support that have a coach. We're rolling out to have a math coach in every elementary school. But the other 75% of those schools are supported by AMSTI, not through Dr. Anderson's office. Now, fix everything I said wrong and add to, please.
Well, you did very well.
Well,
You did very well.
Try to be a B student.
You better be first of all.
Was that a B minus or?
Every single school that's represented there also has a building-based math coach. That coach is tasked with supporting the teachers at that school to be sure they have everything they need to provide rigorous standards-based instruction. So the data process I was talking about before, the coach is of course at the table when we're having those kinds of conversations. So the coach then works with the principal, but really just invites the teacher into what's called a coaching cycle. So based on data, if I'm a third grade teacher and you're my coach, and I know that my data shows that I'm really not, my students are really not doing well in one particular area, then we're gonna do a pre-test before I do a lesson. So we'll see how my students doing in that particular area. And then you as my coach, you're gonna work with me. You're gonna make sure my content is strong. You're gonna provide me with some instructional strategies. If I need you to, you will model for me or even co-teach with me. And then I'll teach a lesson on my own. And after all of that support, we do a post-test. And by then my students are better because of the support that you as a coach have given to me. And that's happening in each one of those schools.
One question, how many schools came off the full support list and moved either totally into general or moved to limited support?
I'll have to get you those numbers specifically. I will say that approximately 35 schools are brand new to us. So that means approximately 35 schools, whether they're full or limited, came completely off and are brand new, weren't even on the radar for OMI at all, so are brand new to us.
Sure. And remember, she said it's a growing number. So it started out 5%, the 5% lowest performing were, and now it's 6%, and then it'll go up to 7%. So some of them will be able to continue to grow, but they'll stay in full support because they weren't in they may move out of the bottom 5%, but they're still in the bottom 7%. So they'll stay in, they may stay in there. But as she said, we've seen significant growth in some of these schools.
So how many do we have in full and how many in limited altogether?
We have approximately 840 schools that provide instruction in grades K through 5, 840. So the bottom 25% of that is 210 schools. So that's how many schools OMI is responsible for supporting.
Okay.
And so the bottom 6% of that is around 50 schools.
50. Okay.
Just doing the calculation.
Yes, thank you.
If you get this many questions on the second slide, we might
We'll start
have a
there.
snack, but that's okay. Keep going.
Observation.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because this is a huge part of our work.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking, I'm actually a little bit embarrassed here thinking about Dr. Anderson and I are being invited literally monthly to present these things on the national stage, and we need to make sure all board members know what we're doing. So keep going.
Well, my extrapolation, if you had 35 new ones, so you want us to have a lot of them that moved up,
Yes, sir.
which is the question I
Because
think
right now you have 50.
Pardon me?
Right now we
She
have
said
50.
she had 35 new participants
Right.
of the 80, or
Of the 250.
of the 250, 35 were new, which means 35 had to get out of that
Yes, sir.
population.
That's
If
right.
I extrapolate my mental capacity even as an
That's right.
alderman.
All right, well, maybe we can get off page 1. We quit asking
Well, I thought you might wonder why. Why are they making progress? Or why are they not making progress? So there are a number of factors, some of which may or may not be listed here, but these are by far the most common.
So how many states, here's a quiz, how many states require 60 minutes of elementary math a day? I can give you the answer, it's pretty simple. One.
One, it's us.
Only Alabama.
Mississippi does not.
Haven't we always required that?
Oh, yeah.
30. Used to require 30.
What does
Used to
Mississippi
require.
require?
It's been
60 for a while, yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And there's another state that is in the process of doing it, but
And the key to that is we made sure it was protected time.
yes, protected time one of the things that they're doing when we go into the schools is making sure that
I mean, it doesn't work if you suddenly pull them out from
using
PE
it,
or
yeah.
pull, it's protected, and that is.
60 minutes, yes.
Because then you valued it, and that's what you're saying.
Exactly. Whatever we spend time doing is that thing that we value.
Right.
That's very clear.
Mhm.
And to that end, I have seen a number of schools that actually are creating in protected time, as they do for reading, for tier 2 and tier 3. So it's going above and beyond that 60 minutes, which is necessary.
And that's how valuable your leadership at the local level is.
Right.
So let me ask you, because it might be on page 3, that your principals are getting the same training, and they're knowing how to do the walkthroughs, and they know to do the look-forwards and all that.
That's really.
So that comes from y'all
Yes.
giving that guidance during your cycling time together.
Yes. There are also specific trainings that we ask principals to attend called Everyone Counts, where we give specific training, provide walkthrough
Professional
forms that are tied to our evidence-based practices
Okay.
that are also available for APLDS hours as well. So it's a great one-stop shop. But we are constantly working with, and not just school administrators, but also district administrators, because we recognize the impact that districts have on instruction in general. So making sure that they have the tools they need to effectively implement the law.
Okay, thank you.
One more.
Yes.
When ARI started, there was a lot of pushback from some classroom teachers about someone coming in and telling them how and what to do. Do you see that kind of pushback now?
Yes, to be quite honest, we really are encouraging teachers to engage in those coaching cycles that we talked about, but not from a standpoint of we're trying to fix teachers, but just from a standpoint of just trying to get better. I love sports more than a lot of people. I cannot think of a single elite athlete that does not have his or her own coach.
Absolutely.
And it's just to take them to the next level. And so that's really our position, is that coaching in the educational realm is just to take you to the next level. Everybody should want to get better.
Right. Yeah. But you do have a little bit of that attitude?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe not as much as when it first started.
It's getting better.
Good.
It's
And it
getting
needs
better
to.
because it's compounded by the fact that for a lot of people, math is not their favorite thing. Just that whole idea of a fixed mindset. There's a gene for math, or I'm good at math and I'm not, or my mother couldn't do math, so by golly, my child can't either. I mean, there's still a lot to root out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions about these factors?
One more question.
Now, you keep saying one more.
I'll
You're the third one more.
Well, she mentioned something, that the pushback, does it come from your new college graduates that are coming in, or from those old folks like me?
Old folks like you.
There's a variety, because it's seasoned. It's not just, it's a mindset, and the mindset transcends age.
It does.
There are those who are young that have never really felt competent, and they haven't felt that they had the capacity to teach math effectively. So it really transcends age.
If I could jump on that, and I want to say something else about the second column. it is very much like, Dr. Anderson's a true sports fan, but it's very much like a coach. If I'm a kicker and you send me in a new kicking coach, if I believe that that kicking coach is here to make me a better kicker, I have one. If I think the head coach has sent him to try to figure out whether I should be the starter or I should be sidelined, then I have a different attitude. And that's one of the things you see on the second column, teacher, coach, and a principal attrition, but then above that, unproductive leadership math coaching relationship. So if they think the coach is in there to tattle on them and try to figure out whether they should be in the classroom or not or whatever, then they're not going to be as open, honest. It's not a good relationship. If they really believe the coach is there to help them be a better kicker, then they will take their advice. And that's why we take all of our coaches through a rigorous coaching model, is to try to help them learn to be coaches. Just because you're a good math teacher doesn't necessarily mean you'll be a good coach of teachers. And as Dr. Anderson said, I mean, clearly, we got a lot more teachers who think that they are not good at math themselves, and so when somebody starts to critique their teaching of math, they kind of put up that wall.
Defensive.
And it's not, and that's not what we want. We want people to dig in and improve their skills in math. In math, I shouldn't say improve, sometimes improve their skills in math, but really in math understanding and math teaching. I've said this so many times, it's not that our teachers can't do math, it's that teaching math is really hard. Same way with reading. There are a lot of people in this world who can read but can't teach somebody else to read. And math is the same way, and so we've got to get beyond that wall. The other thing on the second column, I'm focusing more on the second column than the first one. The left column is everything that's going right. Unfortunately, there's a disproportionate number of uncertified teachers in our full support schools. Now, when we say full support, these are schools, it's not like, in most cases, that their students are all knocking it out of the park on reading, and math is where they're struggling. These are struggling schools. They're high poverty schools. They're mostly high minority schools. They're either inner city or very rural. They have a limited pool of teachers to choose from. And so if Dr. Anderson sends in the very best math coach we have, but half of the people that math coach is working with are not even certified teachers. They're people who have an emergency certificate or a substitute certificate. They're not going to be able to absorb the coaching like a certified teacher. And that's an issue that we can't solve overnight, because we don't, it's not that they don't want to put certified teachers in those schools. They have a hard time. And I think it's somewhere on there about turnover too. A lot of those schools, they do get a certified teacher who's there for a year. They're driving 75 miles one way to work, and they the next year get offered a job closer to home and they leave. So a lot of the problem in these schools is the lack of really strong teachers who stay for a long time. So that we're showing 88% of them are showing growth is kind of remarkable, but it's there are more issues than just math teaching going on in almost all of these schools, and maybe all of them.
And about which you were just speaking, the teachers who talked about them traveling those rural roads and all that. And we know about principals, but are the coaches as susceptible or wanting to move? Do you see that movement leaving?
That's
I know
a
it's
wonderful
new.
question. We do have, there are some schools that just seem to have a revolving door on them.
On the coaches?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
I run the risk of you saying that's a dumb question, because everybody, it's a good question. HQIM, is that high quality instructional materials or methods?
Materials.
Okay. I just wanted, I like your acronym, but I didn't know what the end was.
We love a good acronym.
We do. We'll hold on to that for the next 40 years.
And I'll just call your attention to the very last bullet on the right side, use of antiquated instructional practices. That happens far too often. If you're asked to, for example, solve the problem 13 plus 9, I wonder if you're vertically orienting. Okay, the 13's on the top, then I've got the 9, gonna do 3 plus 9 and put down the 2 and carry the 1. Are you thinking that you have to carry the 1, or are you doing it a different way? That is really an algorithm. But what is the 1?
Group of 10.
Then why not say 10? It's not really a 1, because if it was a 1, it wouldn't be
Once
in that
it's gonna be
column.
carried over.
So it's an algorithm that is effective, that works. But if students don't understand the reason that the algorithm is in place in the first place, then it just really defeats their learning.
And that's where you go back to that effective use of those high quality instructional materials.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I've just got a couple slides left. And so just to the point of enjoying math or having a growth mindset toward math, my very first mega conference in this role, I put out a survey just to ask what comes to mind when you think of math. And the words are a little bit small and kind of hard to read, but hopefully you can see them a little bit better where you are.
Help me, Lord.
Yep, that's what sticks out to me.
Headache, complicated. Creativity.
Headache.
I mean, these are honest. This is what actually happened. And I don't know if you can see on the side it says SMH for shaking my head.
Oh, no, I didn't know
Yes,
what that was.
And then underneath anxiety, I don't know if you see in green, it says, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a real mix here. Now I do see some positivity. You know, I see number sense. I see patterns,
Fun.
creativity, everything around us. But there are many negative statements there.
Not necessarily negative, but they're overwhelmed, I think, or they're,
I agree. And so this past summer, I just wanted to see how that same question was answered. And it was vastly different.
Yes.
It's not, there's still some words that might have a more negative connotation, I'll say. But numbers, of course, is very large. Engaging, fun, reasoning.
Yeah.
No more sense.
Using those hands-on manipulatives.
Pictorial.
Yes.
No more calling on the Lord. Somebody said, help me, Lord.
Well, he has certainly come to the rescue.
He did, right.
It's much more
Okay,
positive.
we should have had a hallelujah.
There we go. And that's all I have. That's my last slide. And I thank you for this.
Thank you.
I think now, we had a question last month about how are we supporting our schools who are dealing, especially with, we all hear the challenges, students are coming to us with more challenges than they have in the past. And so we pulled some things together. I don't know who's presenting that though. Dr. Shields coming back. A lot of stuff. We are seeing, fortunately, fewer and fewer requests from teachers and principals because of the supports we put in place. And y'all may, I don't want to take all of her thunder here, but you may know a few years ago we worked really hard, especially through our special education program, because there's often a disproportionate number of special needs children who are getting in trouble, who have behavior issues, may or may not be related to their special need. But so we really thought we got to dig in and help both our special needs teachers and our regular classroom teachers who have general education, but they have special needs children obviously with them, to really improve their skills, and that has helped a great deal. And then of course we're doing other things to help support teachers. So fortunately we're seeing that that's working. It's starting to really turn things around in the classroom and give support. And we still have issues, obviously, and one of the main things that I hear is lack of parent support. So with the school, the teacher's learning and doing new things and it's working, but we got the parents to get the parents to support them. And then also, I don't know that they'll get into all this, but students are coming to us at 5 years old with fewer social skills than students did I'm gonna say pre-pandemic. They're just coming with fewer social, and by social skills, I mean the very basic things like interaction, communication skills, tying your shoes, dressing yourself. It's things that I've kind of the first few teachers and principals that mentioned it to me, I'm like, I'm not sure if they know what they're talking about. And then I heard it more and more, that they're just coming to school. I'm not talking about academic preparedness, there's an academic issue too, but with fewer social skills and self-care skills than they used to have. And that is a real problem that our teachers are now having to deal with in the early grades, in addition to teaching them math and reading. So y'all pulled some things together about the good news, though, good things that are happening. I'll let you talk about it.
And thank you, Ms. West, for bringing this up, because we know that effective teaching and learning, it has to happen in a classroom that's very stable, where the children feel supported, and that the teacher also feels supported. And teaching, positive behavior in the classroom and providing those norms and those structures, that goes well beyond just teaching math and English. Any teacher in the room will tell you that being able to keep a well-managed classroom is just as important as teaching math or science or any other skill, because unless that child is able to regulate himself or herself, that can present barriers for teachers. So we got together because when we were having a conversation in response to your question, just as I said before, classroom supports transcends every section of the department. That is a critical piece of our work. I will echo what Dr. Mackey said. A number of years ago, even actually prior to the pandemic, we were asking superintendents many times. We work with superintendents and teachers and say, what do you need? What is it that you still need? And a lot of it was, we really want to be able to help teachers create structures and norms. Dr. Mackey mentioned we have a lot of schools that have teachers who are brand new. They're emergency certificate teachers. And we know we can't start talking to them about pedagogy and math manipulatives and all of these things until we say, this is how you create a classroom where students can thrive and that is a stable environment for you to teach. So with that in mind, we thought we would share some things. Of course, we could talk about this quite a while because we have so much, but we have spent the last number of years really working in tandem with one another to consider how we can create opportunities for teachers and leaders to consider how we can continue providing supports to our schools. Now, we just listed a few things, and these are things that are universal to our sections. One of the things we know when we are supporting teachers and we're supporting leaders is we have to establish clear expectations. A good parent does that as well, right? Like, this is what I expect and this is what I need you to do. So we work with schools, and not just the classroom, but also at the school and district level. There are codes of conduct, how do you have, what kind of discipline measures do you have? I would say no matter what we do, it has to be relational. I mean, and I really struggled about putting that bullet up first. I have a friend, she's just an amazing teacher. She said something that has just stuck with me for many years. And she said, to be a good teacher, you have to be a student of your students. And I think that is such a powerful testament to what, as a classroom teacher, as a principal, that we really are able to support that child. And those relationships also go on to our earlier conversation about establishing those relationships with with our parents. Because so many of our parents come into our schools that may have had negative experiences in schools themselves. And so being able to break that barrier with parents to see, as I said before, always assume positive intent. We want to do everything we can do to be the best teacher or leader to your child. Creating a structured environment, really working with the teachers and the schools to minimize those distractions, helping our students focus. We have some laws recently that have certainly helped that happen, and we're very pleased with the anecdotal feedback that we're already getting back from the Focus Act. And to go back to my colleague, Dr. Anderson, and of course so many others in our department that work with the actual instruction in the classroom, if we have an engaging lesson, if that student is part of that learning, we know that that mitigates classroom disruptions. So we are always looking to make sure that as we are providing supports to schools, we ask what's happening in the classroom. Are there opportunities where your students are not engaged? Because if your hands are not busy, what happens? And so I wanted to say something about what Dr. Mackey said as well. The classroom positive behavior may look a lot different in our elementary schools than it does in our middle and high schools. So I want you to know that we are nimble to that. And so when we're supporting schools, we're very conscious of the demands of an elementary teacher and also the structures for discipline, de-escalation, resetting that we have in our middle and high schools as well. And I'm going to pass, I think, the next one to you.
Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. Just want to say that just like academic supports, when it comes to behavior supports, it's a tiered approach as well. So there are basically 3 tiers to behavior support that we provide in a school. And in doing so, we take a look to see, first of all, do you have your foundational pieces in place as it relates to that particular behavior? And if teachers are needing those types of supports, then of course we provide them with those supports. Examples of that would be just to make certain that you have like some common things in that particular classroom, such as behavior rules and things, routines and etc. Making certain that you have buy-in from students to know specifically what the rules are within a classroom, and ensuring that the structures are in place. Then we look at, and that of course applies to all students, so you're looking at approximately 80 to 85% of students would kind of fall into that category as it relates to whether additional behavior or supports are needed. When you look at tier 2, you're looking specifically more so the subset of students that we're talking about as it relates to behaviors. And so in that particular area, we're now targeting these specific groups of students to ensure that we use alternative strategies to help support in the classroom as it relates to behavior. And then, of course, that bottom tier, or the tier 3, you're looking at fewer students that we would position ourselves to support teachers with. Usually with these particular students in a classroom, you're talking about individualized plans that would be utilized to make improvements for students, inclusion of like counseling or modified schedules or functioning behavior plans that would be right for that individual student. After looking at the necessary data is important. So as a result, we're looking at all of the data to determine like which tier of support a specific classroom would need for particular groups of students. So we just wanted to kind of first make sure that you understood that it's not just let me pull it out in the air what we need. We want to make certain that it's in a tiered approach. And by doing so, this also affords us an opportunity to see what specific things are needed for that teacher in that classroom, professional development wise, based upon what is observed through the data.
So just a few things. When we talk about multi-tiered systems of support, many times when we even introduce that concept to educators, they're like, well, that's what I've always done. I've always looked at students from multi-lens to see how can I make sure that their hearts and their minds are in a place to learn. So some things that we wanted to share with you that we do through our work with MTSS, which involves other sections as well, not just our MTSS staff. But I have done dozens of the first one, trauma-informed teaching and leadership trainings. It goes without saying we have a number of children that enter our schools that come with significant traumas and hurts. And so we are always want to be responsive to that and consider how we can give grace. Just a good example of, we look at traditional ways that we have disciplined students. So I'll give it a good example. A student who has skipped school for 3 days, how do we traditionally reward that student? Detention. You get out of school, you get out of school. Detention. You have I'm a middle high school teacher. My students were much taller than me. I have a student who's very belligerent with me and gets in my face, and I send you out. That student has 1 or 2 days at home. The student comes back. I'm still salty. The student's still salty. We have not had an opportunity to repair that relationship. And so we're really having conversations about those sorts of things. How can we be very thoughtful about the children that are coming into our schools? What are those things that we know that don't exacerbate situations? And how can we provide opportunities for students who are dysregulated to learn how to regulate themselves? I would say that that is a skill that many people also need. So we know that this is a skill that will transcend school. We do a lot around parent engagement, AMSTI, ARI, MTSS. I mean, it's such a critical piece of the work that we do with federal programs. So, but we are very strategic about making sure we're getting information out there, providing resources, working with our schools, even around attendance, all the things. I have to applaud Dr. Mackey and other executive leaders for really bringing John Maxwell Foundation to our work. That has been critical. We've been able to really explore things like empathy, resetting behaviors, regulating yourself, thinking twice. That has given teachers a great opportunity to really lead discussions in their classroom and then be able to replicate those discussions with their colleagues as well as their students. We're doing a lot of work around youth mental health first aid trainings. Like I said, these are things that we could talk about, but we just wanted to give you, a high-level view of some of the things we're doing. Ms. Washington mentioned the tiered approach to how we support behaviors, response to instruction, those positive behavior supports. It is embedded, so a lot of people, when they think of RTI, they think of academics. That is a piece of it, certainly. But when we have a student who is continually disruptive, we're able to put structures in place, a behavior plan to say, I'll give an example. So, you're acting, you're very disruptive in my class. We're going to come up with a contract. So, Ms. West, you're causing trouble. And so I'm going to tell you, I'm an amazing teacher and I do not want to stop teaching today. So this is what I'm going to do. When you start acting that way, I'm going to come stand beside you. And that's your cue to check yourself. Or I'm going to give you the teacher look, which ask any teacher, we have to look. And that is your cue. So I don't stop teaching. I'm able to continue, but we've already had a conversation that when I stand here. So those are just examples of things that we do to make sure that we are mitigating behavior, but not stopping instruction. Because I think that is where, what can we do to provide supports in that way? And then we do receive, I think the question was about requests. We do, if we ever receive a request related to, can you help with classroom management? Or can you help with engaging instruction? We always respond to those. And they do come, but I would say most of them come in the way of how can we create a culture and climate at our school that mitigates that to begin with. So what are those things that we can empower the principals, the districts, and the teachers to do so that we don't have those behaviors present themselves. These are just, once again, just a few things that we wanted you to see that, once again, transcends many of our sections. We certainly start when thinking of, classroom behaviors that is not germane to the Office of Student Learning or MTSS or counseling. It really is a reflection of system alignment, and I wanted you to be able to see a little bit about what that looks like. We start with that instructional planning support. We want to make sure that what we do is evidence-based and it's going to be very robust and prepare students for whatever the next thing may be, whether they're in 3rd grade or they're in 12th grade. We do have some readiness assessments, as you are well aware, for grade 1. We are able to work with students to determine, okay, not so much on the academic side necessarily, but are you able to sit still? Are you able to, we really look to see, is this child's maturity at a space where he or she is ready to enter 1st grade? We certainly tailor coaching and professional development. I mentioned that. I will say this, so we have a lot of coaches. We have math coaches, we have literacy coaches, we've got ESL coaches. I can continue. And one of the things that was very important to me, because we all come into a space with this is my area of expertise and this is what I got to do today. But when we walk into a teacher's classroom who was working at a restaurant the day before and now she is with us on an emergency certificate teacher, but she has a heart for children and we want to make sure we're creating a pipeline for her to be an amazing teacher, we know we have to start with norms and structures and expectations. And then we can come back maybe in a couple weeks and we can talk a little bit more about some of the pedagogy and the structures. So I wanted you to know that we meet the teachers and we meet the schools where they are, And if we walk into a classroom with really great intentions and we see that this teacher needs a little bit more support, we immediately push this aside and say, okay, how can we help you create a stable classroom and structures that I can lead? And I can't even tell you how many teachers have done that, like, that made such a difference. And like it does. When you tell kids this is what you expect, it's a crazy thing. Now they know, and they know when they misbehave that there are consequences. Family and community engagement, we discussed that. Well, I wanted to be really clear too that there are a number of mandates, certainly laws and structures that we have in place that part of our job at the State Department is to make sure that our teachers and our school leaders are aware of them. With the Focus Act, as you well know, that is something that we have spent a great deal of time to make sure that the schools know what that is about. But it is certainly mitigated as we are hearing. I mean, this is still very anecdotal at this point, but we're very encouraged by what we're seeing with Focus Act, that the students are indeed focusing. We encourage our schools in their continuous improvement plans. Yes, you need to talk about math, you need to talk about literacy, but we also expect our schools to include something around culture, climate, instruction, management, because that is a critical piece of their journey. The mental health service coordinators, which I know we've talked about before, and there are so many other things, but these were just some big buckets of some things that we know have either been compelled by law or these are structures that we have in place to mitigate those behaviors.
One of the things with special education services is that we work alongside the instructional team to ensure that student engagement increases and potential for a likelihood of challenging behaviors to decrease. In doing so, we look specifically at the disability-related behavior. So there are certain traits that students may have that are considered to be common for a particular disability. In doing so, we try to train those teachers on look-fors, things that they need to be cognizant of as it relates to that disability and potential behavior that may come out. For an example, what we do is we provide teachers with opportunities to let them know what could be triggers for students. A good example of that would be if you had a student with autism, many times those students may have sensitivity issues. They may also may have meltdowns due to overwhelming situations, etc. So the last thing that teacher would need to do is to sit a child with those characteristics right there beside a pencil sharpener that's electric pencil sharpener that's loud. Or in another situation, it could very well be to continue to throw a whole lot of assignments at them at one time, and or to change the total structure of the day, because many times students they need the structure, they're used to structure, or to just change the total schedule for that day without going ahead and warning that child. So we let them know ahead of time, these are some of the triggers to certain behaviors. And we do this through trainings that's called high leverage practices. And it's nothing more so than using research-based strategies to ensure that we're getting positive outcomes each and every time. And you can see from there several lists of things that we work with. One thing Dr. Mackey talked about was teaching social behaviors, and we spent a whole lot of time training on that right after COVID. To validate that, we have done several trainings around that, because that's one of the issues that certain classroom teachers have displayed to us to be a problem within the classroom. But again, it's about disability-related behaviors, and that's why it is so important for a teacher to know ahead of time what is in a child's IEP or individualized education program, so that they can see what some of these triggers may be for behavior. In addition to that, sometimes it's not just about the strategy, it's about you needing additional human capital. So with that being said, sometimes we have to bring in that specialist. So we do have grants that are provided to LEAs for board-certified behavior analysts, along with board-certified behavior analyst assistants. Last year alone, we had approximately 113 LEAs that received funds for this purpose. And if they didn't use those particular funds geared for that, they also utilize our other special education supplemental funding sources to hire individuals that can assist with behavior problems with students.
So we wanted to certainly end with what we know the research says about effective classroom management and what that means for students and what that means for teachers. The research consistently shows that in a well-managed classroom, obviously you get more learning, you get more instruction. The teacher has much less job-related stress. He or she is happier, enjoys the job, has that self-efficacy, better health. I mean, because we see the social media posts just like you do. What is it we can do that our teachers are not stressed? I mean, we've got a number of things. The Paperwork Reduction Act is something, we're working on, which is another way we're like, how can we reduce the stress of our teachers? But in terms of classroom management, we know if a teacher is in a well-managed classroom, is not losing his voice all day long, that is exhausting. And so to be able to have a classroom that is well managed and the teacher feels as though he or she can teach makes all the difference. We want our teachers to stay. We want our teachers to stay in this amazing profession. And so helping our teachers to create those conditions in their classroom where they do feel empowered and want to stay is important to us as well. And we certainly want to increase our student engagement. We want less stress, anxiety, and we want more time to teach. I would say as we're looking through that, we covet any questions. We really try to keep this short and sweet because we know I can hear Dr. Mackey's
Yeah, that's good.
stomach from here, but I think that's
a couple more things.
I know it's lunchtime, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know at one point there was training that was offered from time to time, just overall in PBIS. Do we do that, or is it just if a school district or school has a request? Is it something that's continuous, or?
Oh, certainly. No, those kind of trainings are offered throughout the state at our regional in-service centers. I mean, those, yes, that's, they can attend them, but they can also say, can you come next Tuesday? And we work with districts to provide direct support.
Okay, I wondered about that. And the strategies, those are very helpful, because I teach classroom management, and I picked up on something that we do. Contracts, proximity, where you get close, you don't have to say a word.
Yep.
And then the look. We all know that, your parents give that to
When I do
you.
it with teachers, I always have them give me the look.
Right.
They all have one.
It doesn't always work on a husband, though.
You gotta work on it a little harder.
Dr. Richardson, if I may add something to that, to our mega professional development conference. We take data from all of the conversations from our support team, our regional support teams that these two ladies manage, and we bring that together to make certain we're creating that environment. We're already having mega meetings for 2026 right now. So all of these conversations go back and we make certain we're able to create offerings of those professional development activities based on feedback and requests of a lot of things that are going on. And the great work that is being done through our regional in-service center, the surveys that we send out to them to help direct the needs of the different in-service centers, that was a good tool because teachers in those areas are able to say, this is a need for us. And then we go back and we work with the regional in-service center to make certain those opportunities are provided right there for them throughout the year. And we're also engaged with what can that look like? Because the goal is to keep them in the building. So what can that look like? Is it virtual? Is it something that we can do on demand? Is it something that we can set up during their professional development days? So we're having those strategies to make certain we're meeting the needs of regions as well, because it may not be all over the state. So that helps with that to say this in-service center is doing that. And we dig a little deeper because we also get into, let's talk about who needs to present that. Does it need to be some of our team members side by side? The coaching is the best thing that our boss could have envisioned with the state board on helping creating an engaging climate for our boys and girls. Because when you have those coaches across the board with math, with your reading, with your ELs, with your MTSS, you got another seasoned expert in the class with that teacher, so they're able to stop and do things right then. So you're not waiting, you're going ahead and creating that climate for it to occur right there to say, let me show you how we can handle that the best way. You got another adult connected to your shoulder to be able to let them see that in action, and then later go back in those cycles and have those conversations of how to create that within your structure. So the coaching piece, and this is just Angela talking, I think that has really been very impactful with us seeing the improvement in our engaged activities, because those experts are really getting out there with them, and the on-demand learning is just wonderful. You guys,
And I can see that. And on demand is real time, right
Yes,
there.
absolutely.
Well,
I really, really
Thank you.
appreciate you putting this together. I know you're very busy, and I was the board member that asked, but it's October, and I always think of October as the time of year when I need to do a quick overview of everything we're offering from this department to our schools. I mean, it's really important what you're doing. And so I know this was a lot, and you have lots of other things going, but I really appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
It's a good
Thank you.
request. Yeah, it's good to put together. And they, of course, work side by side,
Absolutely.
Ms. Washington and Dr. Shields. Okay, now we're to my time, and I promise I'll be a little more brief, though we can certainly keep talking about this. But what I want to do now, so you see the next several things. One is the resolution for Inclusive Schools Week, which is the first week of December, which is why we do it in November, and that's, of course, to recognize all of our special education teachers and students and the work they do to make sure that we include all of our special needs students in the classroom activities and everything we do. That's something we've been doing for years, to recognize our special needs teachers that first week of December. So we'll have that resolution. There are 3 resolutions related to advanced placement. We'll do those. You'll have a lot of teachers here for that. And then at the work session next month, we'll talk a little bit about the AP scores. They look really good. Our AP participation is up, and our number of qualifying scores, which is a 3 or better, is up. And that's pretty much across the state too. So one of the things we're seeing is that more and more of our rural schools and schools that traditionally didn't offer AP courses, or maybe offered one course, are offering more and more AP courses. So we're growing out college experiences through both AP and dual enrollment. Next month, as we often do in November, most of the time we focus a lot on advanced placement and what that looks like at the November meeting. So you'll see that in the meeting and in the work session. I have 2 updates, and I have the textbook packets. So what I'm going to do is give you my 2 updates first, because they're really quick. So one is I want to address something that more than one of you has asked me about, and that is, in another state far away, truly not Alabama, you saw a news story that a superintendent was released from their job because it turns out they were not qualified to be a superintendent in that state. And the question was, do we have anything in place to keep that from happening? And yes, we do. So in Alabama, you have to be certified by the state to be a superintendent. They're very clear parameters. They are different. For county superintendents, you have to have experience, basically, true administrative experience. It's a little more stringent for county superintendents. It's the most stringent for elected county superintendents, because if you're elected, you actually have to have an EXP form signed by the state superintendent that says you're even qualified to run for superintendent. There's city superintendents. Cities are allowed to bring in non-educators as superintendents. It's happened, in my time as superintendent, I don't think it has happened, but in my years in Montgomery, it's happened twice, where local boards said, we want to hire a non-educator to be our superintendent. And there's a process they have to go through to get that person a certificate. They still have to have a certificate. They still have to have private sector administrative experience, basically. And I think one of the ones we had was a hospital administrator and some things like that. But before a local school board can hire somebody, they have to have a certificate. We do a background check on everybody, just like we do any other teacher. And that it's just we have more structures in place that would keep something like that from happening. without any, I don't want to mention the place. But if you have specifics about that, you can ask me about it later, but just know that yes, we do have structures in place through certification to keep that from happening in Alabama. Secondly, when you leave, you're going to get 2 new documents. One of them is the guidance plan that Dr. Busman talked about, and we give you that. And the other one is confidential, but it's for you all, and this is enrollment numbers. Now, some of you, I've talked to you about this. They're confidential only because I'm giving you the by-district enrollment. They are not finalized. Districts have till a week from tomorrow to finalize their enrollment data. And you say, well, how could it be not final? But we do a 20-day extract, just the first 20 academic days after Labor Day. There are errors. So they have students that get double counted, and so they have until next Friday to clean up the errors. We think that there are potentially about 800 errors left in there to clean up, a population of 720,000. So it's gotten pretty small. So I think they're pretty close. And some of those will end up being errors, some of them will end up being cleared. So, but here's the long and short of it. Our reduction in the number of public school students will be the largest reduction we've had in the last 4 decades. About 5,000 students lost when it's all said and done. We know that a portion of them took CHOOSE Act dollars and went to a private school or homeschool. We're working with the governor's office and Department of Revenue to kind of figure out exactly what that number looks like. But it's probably around 3,000 people, might be a little more, but it's going to be around 3,000 people out of 700, around 720,000 altogether. So that was not unexpected. That's already been reported in the media. So the others, though, are concerning to me. So we're still working through this. But we have essentially 2,100 kids that were enrolled last year that just didn't show up. They didn't transfer to private school, they didn't go to homeschool, they didn't go to school in another state. They just disappeared. Superintendents tell me that most of them here are Hispanic students. So we don't know if they're still living in the state, not going to school, if they have moved to another state but did not enroll in a school in that state, if they left the country. We don't know if they are documented students or undocumented, because as you know, that's something we are not allowed to ask, and we don't ask under federal law. But we know that we have about 2,100 kids that were enrolled last year that have just disappeared. They are not on the radar anywhere. They did not show up for school, public or private, and they did not transfer to a school in another state. They're just gone. So we are, not all of them are Hispanic students, but my superintendents tell me a lot of them are. And so we are, we're watching that, because one of the things is, if those students all come back to us in January and they've missed a semester of instruction, we're going to teach them, but we're going to have to pick them up where they are. And so the sooner they come, if those people, young people, are living in this state and just not going to school, I would implore publicly parents to get them back in school. If the sooner they get back in school, the quicker we can catch them up and move them forward. So that's something we're watching, but you're going to see when I give you these numbers, it is not 1 or 2 districts. There are maybe a dozen districts that grew, but pretty much everybody else has lost students across the board. And some have lost significant numbers of students that they're going to have to make great reductions in teaching staff. So I've looked at a couple of our smaller districts. We have a lot of districts now that are right at 1,000 students. The total statewide, teacher jobs are tied to student enrollment. So this is between 500 to 700 teacher jobs that will disappear next year as we work on the next budget cycle. So it's a big impact. And you've got it. You're going to get to see your districts, what they are. The only reason I'm not releasing the district number publicly is, again, they are not finalized. So next Friday, you'll see a public number. But the state number I don't mind saying it's gonna be around 5,000 when it's all said and done. It's about 5,700 to 5,900 now. Exact number. It's go to the next page. 5,707 right now. But remember, there's about 800 that red flag. They say errors, but they're red flags that we have to individually look at that student. We don't have to. The district has to look at that student and see if it's an error or not. So worst case scenario, if all 800 are errors, that would drop to about 4,900 students reduction. My suspicion is it won't be quite, all of them won't be errors, but the districts are working to clean that up right now. So just think about that, because that's going to be an issue going forward. Now, textbooks. I've talked to everybody in the room a little bit about textbooks, and the textbook process, and we'll talk a little bit about it. I'm going to give you your envelopes. I'll go ahead and pass them around, but would ask you to give me just a minute before you open. So, textbook process, as you know, have one for my deputies over there to share. There's actually more. So here's how the textbook process works in a nutshell. The board appoints a textbook committee, which happened last year this time, last November. This is for social studies and arts. Okay, so you appointed 2 textbook committees. The governor then adds people to the textbook committee. The governor's appointees have to be confirmed by the Senate. So they begin working and they meet throughout the year. And they actually physically have to handle the textbooks and rate them on a rubric. What you have in here are the scores. The textbook is the only process that we, as a department and as state superintendent, we only facilitate, we don't control. By law, the textbook committee is the board's committee, not a superintendent committee, and they report directly back to you. So what's in your envelope, I cannot legally amend. You can amend it. You can ask the textbook committee to amend it themselves, but I cannot amend it. And that's different than setting standards, because when we set teaching standards, I can make amendments to the standards myself. Obviously, then before you approve them. Once you approve them, I don't make some changes, but I can take the committee's report, because it is a committee report to the superintendent. It's technically the superintendent's committee, and then I can make changes before I bring it to the board. We've done that before. But with a textbook report, it comes directly to you from the committee. We are merely the facilitators, and we cannot amend it. The contents of the envelope you cannot share with the public or anyone outside you, not even everybody in the room, because of the contract law. Because these are folks who have responded to a state proposal, and they are seeking a state contract to provide textbooks. And until the board votes and says, this is the list we are sending to the governor to sign contracts with, then they can't be public. Now, some of y'all remember, it used to be they couldn't be public until the governor signed the contracts. Y'all went to the legislature and got that changed, because that's an extra couple of months. And now the law is, as soon as the board votes on them, they're public. So that speeded things up by about 3 months. Once the board approves a list, we go back to the vendors and ask them to sign a contract saying they will provide these books as published, as presented, for a certain price to all of our districts. The governor doesn't sign the contracts until the companies have signed it. We have had issues where the company did not return the contract. They asked to be considered, they got considered, they got approved by the board, and then they just backed out on it because they decided not to follow through. So doesn't happen much, but sometimes the vendors maybe moved on, done something else, and they don't return the contract. But once they sign it and the governor signs it, the next step is then, and this is where I've talked to several of you, That's when it becomes a public, really open to the public to review. That's when they will be at libraries all over the state for public review. They will be there. Every local school board will have a hearing about their textbooks, and then they will choose which ones to buy. So there may be textbooks on this list that never get purchased by any local board because local boards get to decide. But this is the first hurdle, because to be a part of the Textbook Expo, they have to be first approved by the state board. Now, so one other thing about that, so there is a caveat, as y'all know, about local boards can consider other textbooks that are not on this list, so long as the State Board of Education doesn't reject them. If you reject the textbook, then they cannot use state funds to buy the textbook. But if it's a textbook that says, you know, they just didn't submit to the committee and they want to go sell to a local county, they can still do that. That local county board, there's a process they have to go through. They have to basically do the same review that our committee's done at a county by county level. But they can do that. Does that happen? Yes. Does it happen often? No. 99% of our districts are going to buy off of this list. And that's why the list is important. If you want to review the books, I don't know who they set that up with. Miss Martin will help me, but they're on the third floor up here. We have a library of considering textbooks are being considered that are open to you to come view. They're open to the public too, but the public has to make an appointment because of building security. They'll be available to the public at various public and university libraries around the state, so they don't have to come to Montgomery in time. But they won't. That will be after you vote on the list. They're available to you now because the textbook committee is giving you their recommendations. And so as soon as you receive this envelope, which you now have, you can make, you can say, I want to come look at the textbooks and flip through them and see what you think. It's
Did they score them? Or
they did. Let's open them up.
They coded like this.
Open them, and you're going to see. We can't mention vendors' names, but so on page 1, you see the well. Let's skip page 1. I guess skip page 2 to get a score. So page 2, you see the publisher there is in the first column. It's continued on to page 2. And you see their recommendations for these books. So the first page, 1, 2, 3 books, that's kindergarten, first, and second grade for this vendor, but it flipped to the next page too. So for those 3, it's a K2 series. That's why it flipped to the next page. You'll see that the committee gave them an 89, which is a yellow, which means it is recommended. It's not the top tier, but it's recommended for your approval. And that is the first one. And then that same publisher, their 3, 4, 5 series, it's a series, so it's considered together. They got an 88. It says that it's comprehensive material, so that means it's a core textbook, and the committee recommends it for approval. Now, if you keep going to the next page, page 3, you see a different publisher, grade 6, comprehensive textbook got a 93, so it's blue. So blue is the highest rating. That's basically a 90 to 100 on a 100-point scale. The yellows, you see the scale on the first page, is a 79 to 80, 75 to 89. And then a 74 and below is they are not recommended for approval. And if you keep flipping through it, you're going to see some that are not recommended for approval. So you'll also see at some point some that say supplemental. So if you go to page 5, go with me to page 5, you see a publisher on the left, and you see that this is a 4 or 5 series that is supplemental, and it's a 60. They are not recommended for approval. So supplemental means that they cannot use it as a core textbook But if it's on the recommended list, they could use it to supplement. But in this case, the committee is recommending to you not to approve it for either supplemental or comprehensive.
So if we adopt this page 5,
Yeah.
they cannot buy that.
They cannot buy that, that's right.
With state money.
That's right, yes,
With
sir.
state,
That's right.
they can buy it with local money.
Well, the
They
60
can't buy
or
I
the
don't know that they
74.
can even buy it with
I
local
think they
money.
can buy
Dr.
it.
Johns, you're shaking your head. Once it's rejected, it's rejected.
It's rejected.
That's what I was
Yeah,
clear.
if you reject it, it cannot be purchased and used in our classrooms.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So the reason Ms. Manning was saying, well, can you get through that in 20 minutes? Well, because there's not a lot for you to discuss. You're just now getting it. What I think the main thing is, you take your envelopes with you. I mean, I'm glad to talk about process, but now next week, you start flipping through this, you're going to have some questions. Call and let us talk through those questions. Our textbook administrator, Dr. Carolyn Jones, is here. But Ms. Martin and I would really be your best contacts for questions, because we may send some of them back to the committee and to Dr. Jones. We may be able to deal with some of them. Some of you may want to come look at textbooks yourself. It's a hard thing because I think I talked to Dr. Long last night. I said that I won't speak for any of you, but my inclination is to take this list and show it around to people in my Sunday school room and people I know and say, what do you think about this? But I can't legally do that. And the reason is because we're still in a contract preparation period. But what I can do is I can either look at these books, I can look and see if I can go online and put in the name of the publisher in the book and see what other states they're used in and what other people have said about the book. I can ask teacher friends who teach 5th grade, are there any issues out there that you've heard, or I can gather information, but I can't proactively share the information in this list. And neither can our committee members. This is the most kind of tight-lipped process we have, and they swear an oath to secrecy and to do this thing right. I have not, so I just opened mine with you, so I can't say I've gone through and this thing with a fine-tooth comb. But by next week I will have, and I'm gonna. Mr. Martin and I have already made a pact. We're gonna go into that room, the textbook storage room. It's a beautiful room, but no offense, Ms. Manning, feels a lot like a library.
That's a good thing.
But I get overwhelmed in there because there's so many textbooks. But we're going to go in and pull some and look through. And my strategy is going to be, again, as I shared with some of you, I'm going to take particular things that I know are important, say in U.S. history and Alabama history. I can't read all of every textbook, but I can read like one unit on how did they treat this thing and kind of get a feel for how I feel about the book. And how much do they use primary sources and what does the bibliography look like and those kind of things. And you're welcome to do that too. I think, we've improved the process so much. I think that those of you who've been with me for a while will agree the process used to be really difficult. Y'all made changes. You asked the legislature to make changes. The science textbooks, I couldn't believe it went through. Y'all were able to pass that unanimously with no real issues at all. We were able to answer all the questions that were out there. And science it's always been controversial. But there are going to be a lot of eyes on social studies. Maybe a lot of eyes on art, but on social studies for sure. And this is our last big core adoption for a number of years. The next time you'll have a core adoption in front of you as a board will be 2030, I think. And it'll be back to math. So this one will, I was saying it's been a long time since we've updated the whole suite of standards and textbooks in one administration, but we're on the last leg of getting all that done. Ms. Mooney, yes ma'am.
Can we get a list of the task force that reviewed this?
Yes ma'am. We'll send that to you. The committee that did, and for your benefit, so Dr. Long and Ms. Mooney, that were approved before y'all came on the board. I think it was last November.
Okay.
So
we just will go now.
But we'll get you, we'll make sure you have it. There are, you know, there are people from every board district, but it's all sometimes confusing because some of you are going to have way more than others because the law does not reference, it references congressional districts, right? So we have to have representation from congressional districts, and y'all's districts don't always overlap with them exactly. Did we change that, Dr. Jones?
It's state board.
It is state board. It used to be congressional.
It used to be.
Course of study congressional.
Oh, God. See, that's where I get talking too much. So, course of studies by congressional, state board, textbooks by state board. Thank you both for getting me straight. So everybody does have representation, and then of course the additional appointees that come together.
Dr. Mackey, and also some of them would decline once they got started because
Oh, yeah. We had about a half dozen that once they got started, they said it's too much, they couldn't do it. Yes, sir.
And can we discuss it with, maybe I have a constituent in the 7th district that was on that committee, can I discuss the book with them?
Oh.
Or is that a?
Can you do that? Can you discuss it with a committee member?
Don't they swear?
I don't know.
No, they
They swear confidentiality.
No. The answer's no, Dr. Long. Sorry about that. But I'm glad you asked.
That's a good question, though.
It is a good question. I mean, that's a good question.
You may get in trouble.
But the answer's no.
He is allowed to see, or we are allowed to ask about the scoring. For instance, if a particular series was in the low 80s and I want to know what were the comments, what had this book score like this, we can get that feedback from the department, can we not?
Is that?
There are some comments that's optional. Some reviewers choose not to put comments. There a small percentage that did, but for the most part, a lot of people did not. And I don't know if they're not comfortable with that because I tell them you can't use your opinion. It can't be I think or I feel or I believe. So a lot of them tend to stay away from that.
Because the rubric that they use, sometimes it's just you either have it or you don't. Yeah. And so there really is not any comments because this is what we are looking for.
Okay.
This is not evident. And so that's part of it as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is setting a floor. Always remember that. This is not choosing which one's the best textbook. It's just setting a floor so we weed out the ones that don't meet state standards. But we can share, and now feel free to talk to us. Ask us questions. We can't obviously give you an opinion about a book, but you can ask questions.
We can talk to each other.
You can talk to each other, but not as a quorum and not in deliberation. So you can't say, how are you going to vote? Or, I want you to vote for this or against this. You can't poll each other. You can't lobby each other. But you can say, well, you can talk to each other. Yes. You can always talk to each other. I always feel uncomfortable with this conversation because it's the only one that carries criminal penalties for me and board members if we don't do it the right way. It's the only process we have that carries criminal penalties. And so we want to make sure that you follow the process. And I know you might be thinking, well, nobody would ever do that. But remember that for textbook companies, these are multi-million-dollar contracts. And if they get pushed out of a contract and they think it's because board members or the superintendent didn't follow the law, they would, in a heartbeat, bring charges against us. So, okay, I'm going to pass these down, Miss Manning, and these are the enrollment numbers. Again, they say draft. They're going pretty darn close to right.
So how do I know District 6 is here?
Well, they're by school district. I can get them by.
I believe it's everything.
Yeah, this is every school district. I'm sorry, they're in order by, you see counties first, starting with Watauga County, and then cities second. So
Get out your
I don't have them by your districts, and that's a little more complex because some, other than Dr. Reynolds, who has pure counties, everybody else splits counties and cities, and so,
They'll get out our highlighter.
but we can work on it. Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Do we have lunch?
Thank you all, and I apologize for this new phone. I thought I had it turned down. Y'all remember that?
Is this lunch or supper?
Lunch, we got good lunch upstairs. It's lunch, it's lumber, lunch supper.
Turn it down. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing.
Take off from your meeting there, Con. Where's your
Sounds like a big shop.
See you next week.